Okay, Monday, the 16th of October 2023. Welcome to the weekly look ahead from me, Tim Duggan. Thanks for tuning in last week. Some good numbers and subscriptions. Please do, again, click the like and subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate all the people subscribing and liking last week, and a lot of comments. Thank you for that. Um, so we are here, sort of a week now, full week after the breakout of this situation in Israel. I'm just going to quickly go through the economic calendar that we have coming up. Looking at tier 2 and 1 events only here. So today, New York Empire State Manufacturing coming out about 14 minutes. Tier 2 event, not really huge. But what we do have coming this week is a load of Fed and FOMC speak coming at us. So today, Harker speaking twice. And then tomorrow, looking at the docket, German ZEW economic sentiment in the morning. That's London morning. And then Williams speaking, then core retail sales, Bowman then speaking. And then we get APIs. And then, of course, on Wednesday onto DOE. But we'll get core CPIs and CPIs out of the EU. Lagarde speaking at 10. I don't think anything big is scheduled there. And then, of course, in the US, building permits and housing starts, and then crude oil at the usual 3:30 GMT. But then you're getting member Williams and Bowman and Harker all speaking on Wednesday night. Then we move into Thursday. US initial jobless, fully fed manufacturing, existing home sales, and you're getting the man himself, Jay Powell, speaking 5 p.m. GMT. Bostic on and Harker. So they're really going to be hammering in the chat this week. Okay, if you haven't picked that up already, and then Friday to cap it off, you'll get Harker and Messer. I think Harker's gotten the short straw here from the squad. He's going to be speaking a lot, and so Friday's probably going to be a bit of a quiet one, but we can't really say that with this Middle Eastern situation going on right now. So I think looking at the docket for the week, it looks like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, really. And to pinpoint it, I'd say Thursday is probably going to be the most interesting day of the week in terms of price action for these markets. All right. Just to kind of dip in, so here's the front page of Bloomberg right now. So the latest, Blinken returning from Tel Aviv in a bid to contain the war. Just to kind of let everyone know where it's at, we did not see Israel invade with a ground invasion into Gaza over the weekend. They do seem to be letting Palestinians move to the south if they are so inclined. A lot of them aren't inclined to move off their lands. Obviously, this the cutting off of energy and thus electricity and food supplies and water supplies is a breach of international law. There is no dispute of that fact. I think a lot of talking heads who are pro-Israel talking heads seem to think that is fine and that it's not a breach of international law. But that's just not the case. Anyway, so look, this is a really bad situation. I think it's going to weigh heavily on equities to the downside. We haven't seen, excuse me, a big change of the offensive situation at the moment. But one thing to be aware of is this. Okay, so Israel, there's going to be talk of Israel effectively fighting a war on two fronts now. So I used to live in Lebanon, in Beirut, and I would like to think I am quite familiar with a lot of the topics and the nuances between Israeli or with Israeli Lebanese relations. I did have a good chance to discuss this at length with people and investors I was working with in that area. It is extremely segregated. You are not actually allowed into Lebanon if you have an Israeli stamp on your passport ever. Now, I think they've since changed this over the last 4 years, but that's the way it was when I went there, and I was told I couldn't do any business at all ever in Israel if I was to do business in Beirut. So let's get back to the point here. If there has been rocket fire from Lebanon into northern Israel, or so has been reported, and Israel are now defending that border as well in the Golan Heights region, we could certainly look at that. Um, um, yeah, here we are. Here, so it's just in the northern territory of there's Haifa. Um, so let's see the Golan Heights. Um, there we go. Let's just do that and then pinpoint it. Okay, we are up in all around this region here. Okay, so essentially, this is where Lebanon stops and Israel begins, and this is where there has been a deployment for the past 40 years of Irish peacekeeping troops to this area here to defend. Now, this is the second war front that may kick off, is right here. Okay. Um, and you see Beirut is just a short hop and a skip further on from there. So, um, you know, if Israel decide to invade southern Lebanon, you will instantly, and I did talk about this, I think, last week, you will instantly see the Saudis getting involved, and they will not be favoring Israel. They will, I think, look to defend and weigh in behind Lebanon, because essentially you're pulling into play Syria now if there is an invasion in Lebanon and Damascus here, not too far across that Lebanese border. So you're pulling Syria into the war. I mean, you might even, I don't think, Jordan seems to be a peacemaker between all parties at the moment. But, you're really looking at Saudi Arabia then getting involved in Syria. You have Iraq here. Um, I mean, the whole situation can absolutely just blow right up if that happens. So if we get back in here, okay. Anyway, back to the article. Um, I think it would be the next major change in the war and in the offensive, and I think that would then lead to a lot of the OPEC ministers to start to think pragmatically about actions that they could and maybe should take against oil production, export bans, import bans, production caps, all this sort of stuff. So, even as it is, I think we're teed up for an incredibly interesting next OPEC monthly meeting, where we could have some serious volatility on oil on the front month. Now, we are kind of approaching around the 23rd, 25th, the last trading day of this November contract. I think a lot of the seasonal patterns are going to get blown out, and those seasonal spreads are going to get blown out all over the place at the moment on front month oil, or just on oil, over the next 2 weeks at least, until we get some sort of shape as to what's happening here. Um, you are seeing a line of chat now between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Now, this is very rare because if anyone remembers, about 2 years ago, we had the Houthis, who were said to be sponsored by Iran, attacked Saudi refinery facilities, and that caused a 15% over like reopen spike up in crude oil at the time. Now, that was the WTI contract I was trading at the time, and I'd never seen a move like that in my life on oil until that. So these guys don't exactly love each other, but I think they are sharing um, interests of the Muslim world here, and I would highly recommend you have a read of this article. It is free um, to read here. So, um, yeah, Iran. The other factor you have to remember here, and this is a very dynamic situation, but um, Iran are really, if they want to become quite important in the oil production or cut and basically supply picture, they can be. So um, it is a threat to supply. However, these guys could just come back to production at any given time, full production at any given time, which would have a far and wide reach on supply. So this is it's have a read of this article. It's very nuanced, but ultimately I think oil is going to be pushed up. It's going to be pushed down. I think it's net has to be up at the moment and just hold those longs, right? Um, moving over to zero hedge. Egypt allowing finally getting this together, and this is now I've heard on the radio earlier that the while the access for while the access for Palestinians to be able to move south into Egypt, um, that gateway had actually been bombed by the Israelis and was unpassable. It has now been reopened, and as early as today, refugees from Palestine will be moving through that gateway. They're looking at about 600,000 Gazans to move through there. This is just kind of talking a little bit about here down at Rafah, being able to move down through. So yeah, look, this is a total shit show, and there's a lot of displacement going on right now. And to be honest, I hope these people do get to safety. A lot of them are not willing to leave. So here we see. I thought this was quite interesting from Zero Hedge, just an interactive map of which countries received the largest portion of aid um, of any region in 2021. Now, this is really dated. I think. But you see, let's see, where were we now? Ukraine on only 376 million at that time. Now that's blown out to I don't know half a trillion or well, not half a trillion, but about 50 billion at minimum. Um, but you can see then a lot of African nations receiving quite a chunk here. Colombia getting quite a bit there to probably fight the war on drugs. Um, Nigeria getting probably well, actually not the most. Afghanistan there 1.5 bill. I just thought that was interesting. I'll leave a link to that in the show notes for YouTube. This now, who funds Hamas? Where does the money come from? I think this could have wider reaching implications onto the cryptoverse because essentially, MiFID II regulations, banking regulations, are such that any brokers or investment houses and indeed trading companies, trading firms, ones that I've worked for, need to know uh, quite quite intimately who the traders are and indeed then who their investors are. And it's really to get around what's called Y2K and know your customer, or sorry, K2Y, know your customer, KY. KYC, sorry, KYC, know your customer. And essentially, it's to avoid taking money from dirty politicians and anti money laundering, to avoid anti money, well, to enforce anti money laundering regulations, AML. Okay. And so you need to be kind of MIFID II compliant as a fund to avoid handling terrorist money or money from that's been ill-gotten from crime, human slavery, drugs, prostitution, all this sort of stuff. Okay. Now, let's just call a spade a spade. These terrorist organizations are trading crypto left, right, and center, and a lot of black market money is moved around the world using crypto, whether it's Tron, um, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Litecoin, whatever. It's a way to move money all around the world instantly and lots of it and not be tracked at all. Now, some say that's a great thing. It is a great thing, but not when it comes to uh, funding of terrorist organizations. All right. So, have a read of this because I think this is just going to allow governments, particularly in the G7, to take a magnifying glass and shove it right up the rectum of Bitcoin, of uh, Bitcoin funds or crypto funds, and really, have those firms that are offering like an exchange, like Binance or Coinbase, to really enforce and have super strong KYC and AML regulations, and effectively to just wash out a lot of the bad actors. Okay, so I think this is probably net going to be a little bit down for equities, but or sorry for crypto as a mass adoption killer. Okay. Yeah, I thought this was quite interesting here. Americans, by a poll, an Ipsos poll and Reuters poll, they actually want to help the Gaza civilians out of harm's way. And, this is really important because a lot of the media, both in the UK and the US, really is skewed towards being I won't say pro-Israeli, I would say pro-Zionist. And there is a difference between Zionism and being Israeli and being Jewish. That there is a slight nuance there. And Zionism, to give you the top strokes, is more this nationalist concept of what it is to be Jewish, rather than preaching the word of the Torah, which is essentially the Jewish Bible and the Word of God as handed down from the Mount Sinai, from God. So Zionism is more this concept of nationalism for Israel via the religion of Judaism. Okay, and so um, you would have rabbis who are not necessarily Zionists, for example. And I think this is a really nuanced point that has to be made. And if you are against, say, the actions of Israel, and someone says, well, you're just anti Semite. You'd say, well, am I anti Semite or am I anti Zionist? And that will probably shut them up because they don't know the difference. Okay. And you could then reference a rabbi and say, well, are you Zionist or are you Jewish? And then you're going to start a very interesting conversation and really sort of get somewhere. Okay, so I mean, look, we all have to be more educated on these matters. Okay, that says, look, I think this is really interesting, and the poll here is showing support. Let's just find the poll here. It's not there. Um, I don't have the poll here, but showing 78% of respondents, including 94% of Democrats and 71% of Republicans, agreed with the statement that American diplomats should actively be working on a plan to allow civilians fighting in Gaza to move to a safe country. Okay, well, yeah, fantastic. We just really did need to hear that out of America, I think. All right, moving away from the conflict and a little bit back towards markets, something that just came up that I was reading um, over the weekend was that Qatari Energy now has a 27-year forward supply deal with French oil company Total Energies. It's going to be 3.5 million tons a year of LNG from Qatar going to France. So this is really the Hail Mary that Europe was looking for to kind of get us away from Uncle Boris's gas, right? That we don't have anymore. And in a way, it's also a nice one for the Dutch because they shut down the Groningen oil and gas field, which has also been a source of gas for Europe. So, we've done it basically in Europe. We secured the bag for nat gas for the next 27 years there. So we're kind of off the Putin teat, if you like, of gas. So on to the next there, right? And I mean, you certainly seen nat gas having a bit of a problem to hold the recent highs here, but I think it'll go high on a Henry Hub. Have a read of that, because it does sort of take the bid out of the TTF, which is the European gas contract. Um, and already this morning, I was hearing on the radio that the national grid provider here doesn't expect us to the risk of an outage being anywhere near it was this time last year. Okay, because of we are securing sources in Europe for gas energy elsewhere. Okay, the decline and fall of luxury goods. I thought this was interesting. I always kind of like poking fun at people wearing, $5,000 jumpers, LVMH. Anyway, well, just the truth is in the chart here. You're seeing here. US luxury goods stocks are basically flat from the start of COVID, having diverged dramatically since mid 22 from Europe. So you saw here, really the decline in the bid in luxury goods really started there in mid 2021 in the US. Just kind of a couple of months ahead of the decline came in Europe. You see, there is obviously a sort of a, on parity, still a greater demand in Europe, resurgence being a lot stronger here in mid 2022, coming into the end of all right, well, sorry, where are we here? 2022, 2023. Yeah, coming into late 2022 here. So, um, you know, look, I think Europeans like their, 6,000 quid llama merino wool socks a bit more than, Uncle Sam. So this doesn't surprise me too much, but what it does have implications for are your positions on LVMH or luxury goods providers or, provider companies into that space. So, I just thought that was a nice chart to check for that equities play, and that's really it for the markets there. Yeah, that's really it. I mean, we could probably have a little bit of a look here at these markets and how we've been trading. So if you go back and have a look at the weekly look ahead I did for oil last week, which I'm sure you will all do and watch it in full, I was saying, hey guys, we got to come back and fill the gap. Now the gap at the time was this. And I said this thing was really going to be, get priced in very quickly, and we'll come back, close the gap, and then we should go. And so you basically saw that happen, a closure of the gap there last Thursday. Um, we actually came in about 3 in the morning, and we just slipped out then on the close. And you could see that there was definitely interest in the market there at that time to try and push these longs out even more. But then we managed to come back in on Friday morning and just bit all the way up about 5.5% up on the session there. It was a whopper of a day. From here to the close was actually that says 4.1. Oh no, but yeah, just shy of 5% on the close. The open to close was actually 4.83%. Electronic open to pit close. Okay, so yeah, that's oil. Do I think this picture is gonna start to go off a little bit? Well, we have hit a significant resistance point just now as been talking. That's 88.32s. If we look at that on the daily bar chart, it's not that significant really. It's just kind of the low generally of this area that we've been looking at before. I think we can easily push on to 90s and well beyond if there is a scaling up of this conflict. Gold, a lot of talk about gold. I think gold is going to, again, like oil, get fully priced in. The risk factor, the war premium, I think will get priced in quite quickly. You're seeing a bit of that in the tail of last week. Um, yeah, you're seeing a bit of that here. We're trading 1933s. It's holding within balance of prior day's trade there at the moment. The quarterly low coming in with a nice bid on 1922. So on, let's see, when was that? Kind of midweek. We got that last week. So look, you don't want to be selling gold in these times at the moment. And I think the bid is in. So I think the opportunity to buy here is gone for the moment, unless we slip out below quarterly low. And in that case, the war premium is probably completely off the table, and therefore you probably don't want to be buyer on gold below 1922s, right? But look, your trades are your trades, guys. Um, yeah, I think equities, I don't want to get into equities too much because I think there's going to be a lot of pushing and pulling around the place, a lot of risk, a lot of them taking the risk off the table, and who knows? Who knows? But all I do know is that weakness was shown there on the 44.25s, and that is where we would expect sellers to have come in from. They did. Can we rebid and get over the 44.25s this week? If so, I'd be loving to buy a pullback 43.77s. probably won't get that if we have the break over 44.25s. And then if we do get over 44.25s, I would say you'd be able to get a pullback long on the 44.18s, bam, and get that pushing into these areas around 44.80s. And so some nice day trades may present themselves this week. Um, because while I think the picture isn't too clear, I think equities, there are dip buyers out here. Yeah, there are dip buyers out here. The dollar, I think that's going to be. Well, I mean, it's kind of breaking this mega uptrend bull or bear flag here. Look, I think there's easier trades in the dollar. When I think about trading the dollar, I think about holding multi-week trades on the dollar and kind of, yeah, to kind of get on board with like a little bit of this. And so I'm not just trying to make day trades in the dollar myself. And so I still need a bit more evidence to see, is the risk taken out of this global picture or not? If so, dollar will break down here for sure and take that war risk premium out of that market. And then that will be equities up, up, up. So yeah, tricky times to trade in, guys. All right, listen, that's been all for this week. I hope everyone has a really fantastic week trading. Keep your risk tight. You don't need to trade every single day, guys. Thursday probably going to be the more interesting day this week. And if I don't see you, enjoy. Bye bye.